Hashtag Move the World. JESC 2020 has just taken place and France has won. Shall we talk about it?
Let's do this.
Y'all, j'imagine. My imagination is lit after that performance. It was absolutely amazing. This was kid-friendly, it was colorful and bright, yet it also appealed to adults because the ditty gets stuck in your head. La 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 machine. It's just very feel-good. During a pandemic, this is what you want. This is the kids' song I didn't know that I needed. I love that the LED had monuments from all over Europe. Voters could see themselves in her imagination. It was very tasteful. I think the right song, the right act won. Porig, what about you?
I definitely think that it was the song that stood out the most because of the year that's in it. A lot of delegations seem to go down the route that we need to be somber and serious and reflect on the pandemic. So there was a lot of power ballads, it felt, compared to other years. And I think one thing as well this year was that we missed then having the same variety of songs because there was only 12 songs, so whereas last year we had 19, so it was nearly half the amount of songs, and there was a lot of variety missing, which meant then that France really stood out because there was only one or two other pop songs, and France, none of them were done as slickly as France. Spain is very slick on studio, but on stage it came a little bit unstuck with all the dancing. The Netherlands weren't quite as bright and vibrant, and so France really stuck in the memory afterwards. And then Valentina's personality was so infectious. The smile was nearly as big as the stage, and she had the pimp slot in the running order. And one thing as well that you would swear the producers picked it on purpose, but it was completely by the random draw. So yeah, she's truly a deserving winner. And it's something that France have been building for year on year since they returned.
Jonathan in the UK, what about you?
I completely agree. Sort of when we were listening to the studio cuts, France was, in my top 5, sort of bubbling under. And then as soon as we'd seen all the performances, it just shot straight into my number 1 position. It was by far the standout act of the afternoon. A lot of the performances just went for sort of dark staging. I don't know if there was someone behind scenes that hadn't quite coordinated things, but a lot of it was quite dark. And then France just hit you with the serotonin and the candy and the bright colors and the rainbows, and it just completely stood out. And yeah, the tune is completely catchy. I could see that most people will be going away this evening with that in their heads, humming it over and over again into the night. And yeah, as Porrick said, since France have come back in 2018, they've been hitting it really well with songs that are both child-friendly, but also really appeal to juries. And I think this is the year where they finally nailed it, and it was definitely a deserving win. And I'm really looking forward to seeing France host next year.
And we should point out that France won both the jury vote and the televote. We have a clear winner. This is something we haven't been seeing at the adult contest in recent years. So it's nice to have, I guess, a fully affirmed winner, if you will. Before we continue, let's actually go through the scoreboard. This is the overall result. First place was France on 200, then Kazakhstan on 152, then Spain in third, the Netherlands in fourth, Belarus in fifth, followed by Georgia, Ukraine, Malta, and then sub 100 points, Poland, Russia, Serbia, and in last place, debutante Germany. I guess I'll just kick this off by saying Kazakhstan in second place. This was excellent. They really nailed their staging. I love that they took elements, or rather were inspired by great Eurovision performances of the past. Chingiz Mustafayev with the glowing heart, Polina Gagarina, the big white dress, Sergei Lazarev, and that girl from Malta, Taya Garrett, with the wings. the golden pyro shower Eleniki, and yet this still felt very original, epic. Game of Thrones, she was emotional. People can say, some people have said rather on Twitter, oh, this is a sob story. No, this is a real story. And she's feeling it. It is, of course, about her father passing away and like missing people you love. This was stunning. It felt very sincere. And I think Kazakhstan will get their win in the years ahead. I just think in this pandemic, people wanted to be lifted up as opposed to kind of having their heart wrung. But it's a beautiful performance. Poreg.
When you look at Kazakhstan's record, that they've been in it 3 years, they've had 2 top 2 finishes in a row. They've had all 3 of their entries have been top 5. They've brought fantastic staging, fantastic songs each time. Their omission from the main contest each year is becoming more and more glaring, and I think it's only a matter of time before the EBU has to let them in, because they can't very well be like, oh, come here, give us the numbers so that we have enough countries to have a junior contest. And especially when they're putting in such effort, because I won't name names, but when you look at Kazakhstan and compare it to some of the other countries, there was no comparison between the quality of the songwriting, the melody, the staging, the whole package. And Kazakhstan, like you said, it's only a matter of time before they win. And they know the winning formula. They're almost like the Australia of Junior Eurovision, that Australia came to the adult Eurovision and shook things up, and Kazakhstan have done the same thing for Junior.
Yeah, I think they went full force, full production with this performance, and her vocal delivery was powerful yet emotional and really gripping. And to actually, perform second in the running order, which is often as a bit of a dreaded spot, and then still sort of come second with the jury, and I think come sort of top 3 or so with the public as well. It just shows that she really sparkled, she really shined, and yeah, I think I can sort of see why 2021 is not the best year for Kazakhstan to sort of join Eurovision as a whole with everything else that's going on. But definitely in 2022, they need to be at the top of the list. They need to be in this contest. They need to be, as a fan of Kazakh music, and there are so many artists from this country that could shine on the Eurovision stage. And, they've proven that even in the midst of a pandemic, they're willing to put in everything for Junior Eurovision. So they've shown that they deserve their place in the official big Eurovision. And yeah, I really hope that it happens sooner rather than later.
Yes, Kazakhstan was second in the jury and third in the televote. Again, a very consistent placing. That's brilliant. We move on to third place overall. This was Spain. So Leia, there was lots of hype with her. She actually finished second in the online vote, but with the jury, she was down in 6th. And I've got to say, the stage show itself slightly underwhelmed me. I think this leaned more adult, and I don't want to say it felt empty at times. It didn't wow me as much. She wowed me. She had so much personality. She's a little star. I mean, the joy in her performance, her face, her attitude, that was brilliant. I just think maybe the staging, I don't know, I felt like I was at a nightclub as opposed to at Junior Eurovision. And I wonder if some jurors kind of felt the same way. Because this is really good in the televote. I mean, my God, second place, banging. But then jurors who perhaps have to think about where they place their vote and what the public might think may have been a bit more conservative in their taste. But I think this was a fantastic song. I really loved it as an adult. And yeah, this was not bad staging. I mean, we talk about Spain staging at the adult contest underwhelming. While this may have underwhelmed me, it wasn't bad staging. I think it was still eye-catching, particularly the aerial shots above with kind of glowing floor.
I think what worked to Spain's advantage in the televote was the votes have been open since Friday. So most people were probably basing their vote on the studio cut. And that was always the most popular entry in the run-up among the general fandom. And I think then where she slipped in the jury was that there was so much dancing that at times Soleil was kind of losing her breath a little bit. And she was a small bit breathless. And so her vocals, while very good, weren't as on point as, say, Valentina or some of the other performers. So that's probably where she slipped a little bit, but it's still a very good performance, and it keeps Spain's track record of never finishing outside the top 5 intact.
Yeah, I think there was a fair amount of hype behind Saleha going into this, and she was definitely one to keep an eye on. And I think she can be happy with the performance that she delivered. You know, it definitely stood out against a lot of the ballads that we saw, and her bringing this flamenco-inspired pop tune was really nice and a really good contrast to some of the other acts. Yeah, I think, you know, vocal wise, when you've got people that are delivering, you know, big ballads and showing off their vocal talent, it can be quite hard to sort of compare to that, which is, you know, maybe where she fell down a bit with the juries. But yeah, I don't think that Spanish fans should be disappointed at all with this. I think, you know, it's another great result for them, and they can, you know, definitely, as we've seen with France, where they came back in 2018 and won in 2020. So, you know, Spain came back last year, so maybe it's only a few more years until they finally get their next Junior Eurovision win as well.
In fourth place, it was the Netherlands. Unity best friends. They ain't frenemies, y'all. They are legitimately best friends. They came fifth with the jury, and then they finished fourth in the televote. This is sort of the Netherlands by numbers at JESC. They're very good at doing dance numbers with choreography, and most of their entries have kind of leaned this way. I think this didn't have the energy of Valentina's performance or Saleha's performance either. I don't want to say it felt sluggish. It was good, but it just wasn't as upbeat. And so it kind of, for that reason, got lost in the mix. But I love the colors. I think they have good energy, very positive. And I loved their reaction when they got 12 points. They were so enthusiastic. Like, the Netherlands is very good at getting children, how do I say this? Not stage kids. I mean, they're obviously all, you know, in competition and go to often have dance classes, music lessons, all that. But they just feel like real children. I don't know, kind of like what Valentina and Saleha have going for them. It was this natural enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's basically like what you said. Adult Eurovision, the Netherlands has this kind of Americana kind of format that they stick to. At Junior Eurovision, it's very poppy, kid-friendly, highly choreographed, and it does well. And I guess maybe the problem tonight was that maybe it's a bit too formulaic, the song itself, and that people have seen it. They saw it with Kisses, they saw it with Force, they saw it with last year, and that they wanted something fresh. And I guess the girls shone on stage, but maybe their staging, when you look at their stage show compared to Valentina's really popped and hit you straight in the face, and that probably helped her as well. But yeah, it's a very respectable finish. Like, nobody can complain about coming forward.
Yeah, I think the Netherlands have really been sort of the pioneers of keeping up the child-friendly aspect of Eurovision over the years. You know, Junior Eurovision started off very, you know, children sort of being happy and doing what they wanted, and then we moved into the sort of big ballad era, and, you know, the power vocalists often won. And then past 2 years with Poland, we've seen sort of more adult-leaning pop songs winning. Out that, the Netherlands have just really kept up the sort of, you know, the flair and the excitement of just little kids enjoy what they really want to do. And I think that is, you know, a testament to them for keeping the spirit of Junior Eurovision alive. And I think, yes, this year sort of Valentina sort of overshadowed them slightly in that regards, in that sort of genre. But yeah, I think the Netherlands are often the country that I most look forward to hearing their Junior Eurovision entry. Like, I always really want to hear what they're going for, and it's often sort of an entry that I have looping in my head after I've heard it. So yeah, I think the girls can be really proud of themselves.
And the final country we'll discuss in order is Belarus. They came fifth. The jury televote split, or rather online vote split, was third place jury and fifth place online vote. And I think you can understand why. Jurors would have been really impressed by the composition, the voice, the presence. Whereas for kids, it's maybe it's a lot of drama. You know, this is full on, the world is in crisis. Let's do something before we all burn to death kind of thing. Very competent performer. It was very good. On the 9 to 14 scale, in terms of maturity, this would lean more towards the 14. I think she could kill at adult Eurovision with this song. Really good. There's been a lot of sort of online shade about who used pre-recorded clips and studio cuts. Ultimately, I think if you're having a competition where you can vote before the live performance, it doesn't matter that much because people are going to be voting on the music videos ultimately, not just the little clips. I think this is a very good performance.
Yeah, I think Irina obviously is a very good singer and her vocals are very strong, but the song itself just wasn't my cup of tea. It's very bleak and very dark. And then the staging is literally some children holding the world, looking like they're out of a horror movie. They have such looks of despair on their faces, and then the whole world blows up. So I can see why it mightn't have encouraged people to log on and vote in the same numbers that they voted for Valentina and her happy clappy, everything's going to be grand kind of approach. But it obviously is very strong. I think it was trying to go on the Billie Eilish kind of dark pop wave that we're seeing at Eurovision with the likes of Victoria and Roxanne, except rather than kind of the breathy vocals, she's gone for the big power ballad that we traditionally associate with Polina Gagarina or those kind of people. But yeah, I think I can see why, if you were to look at it, it would always be on the jury that you would say that she would get her points, and that's exactly where she did. And she's a performer. I expect to see her again in the Belarusian national final at some point in the future. And she did very well. And yeah, 5th place is nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, I think this was quite up my streak. So it was my number one sort of before the live performances. And I'm always a fan of sort of a dark, powerful Eastern European ballad. I do think that, she definitely conquered it vocally. I don't think the staging and live performance was the best way to do it. I was a bit confused by the clips of the kids holding the world, and I didn't quite understand how that fitted into everything. But yeah, I think Irina is a real talent and a real vocal standout. And yeah, this was definitely gonna lean more towards the jury. And yeah, I think I don't really have anything else to say. Yeah.
Yeah, those kids holding the world randomly, they almost look like they didn't think they should be there either. There's like, why the camera on us? What's going on? It was a bit weird to me. Okay, cool. Well, let's now open the discussion. At the other end of the scoreboard, Germany came last with both the jury and the online vote. And I think for me, the song, it's just, it doesn't really have that youthful appeal. It kind of sounds like a song you'd hear at an adult national selection that wouldn't do so well. It didn't have a wow moment. I think a lot of the other songs have wow moments. If you look at the top of the scoreboard, because, kids need something they can remember. And so do us adults, frankly. And this was just very pleasant, good performer. I liked the LED kind of shadow dancers, you could call them. Good thing about a digital backup dancer, they're always going to hit their mark, okay? They're always going to be in time. But the performance just ultimately wasn't that memorable, and it had the double whammy of going first. And that it came last with both the jury and the televote would suggest it was kind of universally respected, but not ballyhooed. Boring.
I have a theory that it's just pure speculation on my part, but I have a theory that the EBU during the summer saw the numbers dropping like flies as broadcasters struggled with funding and budget cuts and the COVID restrictions. And they looked to Germany, who've always been very reliable, and traditionally they're a wealthy broadcaster who don't have problems with funds. And they were like, could you do us a favor? You haven't joined us for 17 years. Could you join us this year and send us a song? And Germany, nearly out of the goodness, said, okay, we'll organize something. And they sent this, and Susan was a competent performer. The song was pleasant, and they were kind of like, this will do, because it didn't strike me as a debut entry. And often a country kind of enters with a signal of intent that this is what we want to do and enter with a bang. And I also don't understand why a country would pick 2020 of all years to kind of be their big welcome into the contest. So I think that's my theory anyways, as to why Germany kind of finished quite low, that they were kind of just doing the EBU a favor. It's theory, it could be completely wrong. They might have been planning this for years and years long before COVID came, but that's just a theory of mine.
Yeah, I think it wasn't memorable enough for coming in first position, and I think they were unlucky to sort of really draw that slot for a fairly soft ballad. I think Susan performed well. I did really like the sort of the lights they had down all the slide and the bottom of the staging. I thought that was nice. I hope it doesn't put Germany off and they are sort of in it for a bit longer, and they do continue entering Junior Eurovision. I think it's nice to see them in the contest. There has been there was a time where there were fairly few, big 5 country entries to Junior Eurovision. So it's nice to see sort of Germany, Spain and France entering, with Spain and France doing well. There's no reason that Germany can't do the same. They maybe just need to refine their song selection a bit and make sure that they send something that both the artist and they think that the artist is comfortable with, and that's gonna stand out a bit more. But I do hope Germany continue.
Let's quickly go around and give our thoughts on any other performers. I'll kick it off with Poland. I think that Poland not winning is actually really good for the contest. That's not to slight the performer or the song, but I think if Poland had won for a 3rd year in a row, broadcasters would have been like, okay, we're out. There's no chance we can ever win under this scoring system. However, Poland had a good performance, memorable, clever. I loved all the costume changes, and they didn't win. And that is a reminder this is a tough competition. It's anyone's game still, and it's not just Poland's game. So I don't mean to put off Poland in any way. I just think this is good for the contest as a whole. If we look at her breakdown, she actually came 9th in the online vote, which will surprise a lot of people given Poland's strength in the televote. And she came 9th in the jury vote as well. So again, that's a very consistent result. But I must say this elevated for me, this performance made it, I was so much more into this. It was funny. I was like, what are they going to come out dressed as now? An astronaut? It was like every 10 seconds, it was somebody else. I don't know how they did those costume changes. This was some kind of RuPaul's Drag Race, Shantae, you slay the changing room situation. Pour it.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few people at the EBU who are kind of wiping their brow that Poland didn't win yet again. Because while it's a terrible thing to wish that somebody wouldn't win, they needed a different country to win, because everybody was kind of like being very critical of Junior Eurovision, that it was basically Poland's to lose every year. But I think it would have been, I wonder though what will happen, that in a way it would have been nicer to see Poland up higher and threatened, because it would force the EBU to relook at the voting system, because the voting system still remains very flawed and it's still very much skewed against a few markets. Because if you look at the top 4 in the televote, it's France, Spain, Kazakhstan, the Netherlands. All of them have very good songs, but all of them have been in the top 5, 10 of the televote in 2018, in 2019, and in 2017, and again this year. So if it leaves small countries like Malta and Georgia and other countries like that at a big disadvantage, unless they have a very good song that can elevate them into kind of the higher ends. And it kind of shows that once whichever of the big power countries with a big viewing population has the best song, they can kind of be pointed out as the winner, and that needs to be fixed.
I do think there needs to be a few changes to the voting system. This, definitely would not work at the big contest, letting people vote for themselves. I think, only having 15-second snippets to vote on is enough to sort of judge a performance. If, you're wanting people to judge a live performance, then you just sort of end up going back to the music videos really to sort of vote on that. I do think that, Georgia and Malta, you know, they have done really well in the past in the contest, and you know, I don't think they're not necessarily struggling, but there's definitely elements there that they did better when it was sort of Malta, at least, you know, they did better in the contest when it was sort of the big ballad era. And I don't think they've quite changed their strategy enough to sort of come in with sort of more up-tempo songs that we've had in recent years. I mean, they had Daratond, which was really good, and that sort of that upbeat track sort of did really well for them. So yeah, I think there are definitely changes to be made, but I do think that countries still need to sort of keep up with where Junior Eurovision is going, and don't necessarily just rely on where you did well sort of previously.
Yes, I think they need to bring Mushu back. Mushu needs to compose some songs, y'all. I also loved in the voting, there was a bit of regional intrigue. Kazakhstan got its 12 points from Georgia and Russia. France got its points from Netherlands and Malta. Oh, and Belarus. Okay, so scratch that one. Georgia got its 12 points from, oh, actually, I'm just going to scratch that. What I'm saying is I like looking at voting patterns, and it was great that Kazakhstan was shouting out to its neighbors. Now, look, overall, I've got to say, I actually enjoyed the show way more than in the past. I don't know. I felt like this socially distant kind of record performance thing worked because the acts weren't as nervous because they weren't performing live and they could presumably do more than one take. Everyone seemed calm and relaxed, and the performances were really good vocally, I thought. And it was nice to see the kids kind of beamed in from wherever they were. It felt like they were in the same place. The only time it didn't feel like they were together was at the beginning when they were very clearly, you know, filming in Moscow's Red Square or whatever. It was just a really good show. I loved the graphics with the kind of circular balls coming out of the tube. It felt like an arcade. The host, I could have done with having some actual, you know, teenagers as hosts, because it was like mom and dad and the uncles and aunts crashing your party, like showing, it just felt very awkward. And then of course the one judge wearing, I don't know, a low cut skirt in a kid's show, I just thought it was a bit weird as well. But no, on the whole, I think Poland did a great job. And not that I don't want to have live events anymore with people, but yeah, I enjoyed that. And by the way, Zoom has told me that we're almost at our 40-minute limit, so we need to wrap this up. Pori.
Yeah, no, I think it was a great show for the times we're living in, and it's promising that if Eurovision in May can't be a live event like it normally is, that it can make an entertaining show out of it that moves seamlessly, that we as very knowledgeable fans who follow all the ins and outs of the contest, we knew that everybody had recorded it weeks ago in remote locations. But if you were tuning in for the very first time, you would never know that they were all in different parts, apart from when they went to the green screens or the green rooms all across Europe and the bit at the start. Like every performance, they moved into it so seamlessly. So from that point of view, it's hopeful that we can get an exciting show for 2021. And then it also feels bittersweet that they weren't able to work things in time to make that work last May.
Yeah, I think the production team did a really good job considering, you know, the climate that we're in and everything that's happening. And it was just sort of nice to have a joyous contest to sort of have on in November, and that the kids still got to, you know, have a performance even if it was remotely. I do think that the smaller stage actually worked quite well for Junior Eurovision, because sort of even the wide shots, you could still sort of see the contestants' faces and you could still connect with them, and there was no just sort of massive pandering to show off this big stage and audience crowds, and then you ended up missing what the act was actually doing. So I did think that worked quite well, and might be something that France might want to consider when they host next year, and sort of not going for a massive production, since it is just a kids contest. But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued to see how many shots of the Eiffel Tower we see next year, and how quickly into the show there is an image of the Eiffel Tower.
I was also just really glad we did. Oh, sorry, say again?
Is it confirmed that France are hosting?
It's not confirmed, though I think the winner has like right of first refusal. So given their ambition and enthusiasm, I bet you they will. I'm hopeful anyways. I quite like not seeing all the flags blocking the performers. I think y'all just touched on this. I mean, the vibe of the audience is great to have, but it really takes you out of the moment. And I think that's why I was so much more into this, is because we were just focused on the small stage of the performer, what they've created, as opposed to, you know, our drunken friends who we definitely know, you know, with their shirts off going crazy for their 2 seconds in the camera. Not at JESC, I'm thinking more ESC, sorry. In any case, final thoughts for me, huge thumbs up, the right song and stage show won. I was really happy with the results. This has kind of reinvigorated my interest in the show. Long live JESC. Porig.
It's nice to be kind of back to some sense of normality with shows, live shows happening again, and it's a great kickstart to the 2021 season and bring on May.
Yeah, congrats to all the participants. I thought your performances were all pretty good, and you all delivered vocally, and yeah, it was an amazing show all around, really. So yeah, just well done.
Well, that's what we think. What do you think? Are you hashtag moving the world even though the show is over? Do you think the right country and song won? What are you looking forward to next year if France is confirmed as the host? Let us know here on Wiwibloggs.
Make sure you subscribe and give the video a like.
And comment down below all your thoughts on this year's show and your thoughts about Valentina and Imagine.
And we will see you later. Au revoir. Bye.
Bye. Bye.